Jenn and Lou Payeur, welcome to Rebels with a Root Cause. I know we were just laughing about Rebels Without a Cause. So
yes.
Now I'm all tongue-tied about this one. So
I love it.
Yeah. So welcome. So happy you're both here.
Yeah, such an honor to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So an amazing journey that you've been on, and really love for you to just kind of introduce who you are and what your journey has been, because this is a true rebel story. And you didn't come from the system. You actually came from the financial system. Both of you came from the financial system. So not having any knowledge in health, right? You jumped right in.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I think is important is that, I have this saying, we are the caregivers of our body. So we are the ones responsible. And, I totally believed in the white coat, most of my upbringing. It was, hey, trust the doctor. And I had two major health crises. The first one led me deep into the natural world because I had pneumonia, bronchitis, shingles, tachycardia, mono, and was finally diagnosed with chronic fatigue. And that was back in 2008.
And this is all at the same time?
This is all at the same time. Yeah, hello.
That's like a lifetime of
I go big or go home.
That's right. Yeah.
Like you guys. I don't ever do anything small. But, in that moment, I was given Ambien and prednisone. It was all these drugs, and nothing made me better. And in that moment, I knew there had to be a better path. So in 2008, I started army crawling my way through the natural world, because back then it just wasn't as accessible as it is today. And I went to a 4-year healing school. I did a 2-year study with the 13 indigenous grandmothers that I shared, yoga certified, medicinal aromatherapy, you name it, I did it. And then when I got the big diagnosis in 2015, which was stage 4 cancer, I at least was equipped enough to know that there was a better world out there and better options than what I was being offered in the standard of care.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the corporate side of it, because you were in banking for
29 years.
29 years.
Yes.
Very traditional path, right? You had your health insurance, like everything was, I'm sure, you were in that world.
Yes. All in that world.
All in that world. But when you got sick, did you, what was that thing that just snapped? To say, what led you down? Because I know that you talked about on some other podcasts about, really growing up in nature.
Yes.
Was there something that just came to you and said, it's time for me to start to get back into this, or something calling? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened is, standard of care that was being offered to me was chemo, radiation, surgery, right? The big three.
Yep.
And, I had 4 small kids still. And something innately in me knew that was going to be a war on my body. Yeah. And that it was time to get out of this mentality, right? When you're in corporate, it's all about climbing the ladder, and it's the push, and you override all of the intuitive signals that we all get. And in that moment, I started to open up to that little girl who loved to climb trees, be in the grass, be outside, be in nature. And I said there was something to that. I was happy, I was joyful, and I was healthy. And that's what I need to go back to.
Interesting. The question, though, is the individuals that, because you were in a cubicle, right? Or an office, or whatever.
I was in an office.
You were in an office, right? And those things, the unnatural light, the meals that, you never knew where your meal was coming from, and it was probably not very good for you.
Yes.
So your body was being stressed.
Big time.
Yeah, traveling, it sounded like you were doing a lot of that as well.
Traveling every week, working, at one point I was working 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
So forget rest and repair, right, at night, because I wasn't sleeping. I was sleeping 3 hours a night.
And lunch consisted of a Snickers bar and a Coke.
Or a bag of pretzels and water. It was whatever I could grab.
Yeah. Or for me, chocolate milk and a pack of mini donuts.
Oh,
there you go.
Out of the vending machine, right?
Right, exactly. Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah.
But, when you made this move, what did some of your coworkers say to you? What did they look at you in a way of because I know there was a time where did you jump out and then somebody convinced you to come back in, and they were probably saying, she's out there doing this woo-woo thing. And
that's exactly what they said. She left and she's doing this woo-woo thing, and we got to get her back into corporate because that's where she belongs.
Right. We have to put the straitjacket back on her and make sure she understands this is the path.
Yes.
Nature, what is nature's path? I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, but whatever. And so that was a big, big piece is I did leave in 2012 for about 3 years. And then I started having visions of wearing a suit again. And I told Lou, my husband, I said, I have these visions of wearing a suit. I said, I might be going back into a corporate job. He's like, why the heck would you ever do that? I don't know. And sure enough, the only person I would have ever gone back and worked for called out to me like 2 weeks later, asked me to come back. I said yes. 3 months later, I had stage 4 cancer.
Wow.
It did not take the universe long to say, what are you doing? This is not your path.
Yeah.
That path's complete.
So Lou, talk about this, because I think it's important because, getting a cancer diagnosis and you basically saying, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And I don't know if you had some perception that something like this may happen because you saw what happened to Jenn in the original challenges with her health, and she was almost being thrown back in the crab pot when she climbed out successfully.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you're not leaving. We're bringing you back in. So when you got this diagnosis, what was that feeling that just settled inside of you?
Well, for me, I mean, we had gone through the battle of the 2008 event where she had chronic fatigue. Things started settling in, and then she got better, and she was exploring all these natural paths. And the one thing about the system, right? Insurance didn't cover any of her natural treatments, right? That wasn't part of the deal. We had to go to these clinics, these specialized clinics all across the country. So between the travel costs and the care costs, I mean, it was all coming out of pocket. So by 2015, she gets a great offer, right? With somebody she already knows that she worked with for many years. It was hard to say no, but there was always this, are you sure you're healthy and you can go back to this? And although at the time she felt fine and the symptoms and the markers were not there, there was always this, what happens if she goes back to this? And as she said, 2 weeks later, it's back in. And
3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's back. We should have never done this. And it was the final marker. As she stated, the universe sent the message like, you don't belong in that financial world. It's time for you to take care of you, reduce your stress. I mean, the stressors in our lives all came back at once. The travel stress, the work stress, the long hours, the bad eating, it all comes back because that's the default method.
Yeah.
So it was looking like, oh, this is not good. And then once you know it, it happens. And so she then bailed out. And of course, I was 100% behind, like, hey, get out of that world and I'll support you.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate that I still had my corporate job and provided it the basic, health insurance needs and so on. But it was time for her to just chill out and just not be stressed.
Yeah. There was a message.
Yes.
That was being
message.
sent. Yeah, a loud message. Like, you jumped in and this is what happens when you jump back in the pool.
Exactly.
Like, you're going to get all that corporate
Get the 2x4.
You're going to get that stuff all over you again. So you've said your body made a decision you weren't willing to make, which is a very powerful statement. Can you take me back to that moment?
Yeah, I really struggled because I grew up in a family and in an era where it was no pain, no gain, right? We were never taught to listen to our bodies. And the message that I got loud and clear is it's time for you to start listening to your body. Your body's been giving you these messages and you've been overriding them. And that was pretty powerful. That's when I started getting quiet and I said, okay, I've got this, I was told by a doctor I had a 23% chance to live if I did the chemo and the radiation because I had cancer in my liver, in my lymphatic system, and metastasized from my breast. Wow. And, I had to go through all these tests. Is it in my brain? Is it in my bones, right? So there was a pretty scary period, but all along the way, I got these messages. One of them that I, still remember like it was yesterday is they're testing to see where else the cancer has spread. And I'm scared, right? It's a pretty scary time in my life. And I look up and the guy's name was Angel. Right? Like,
wow,
really,
is this
his
a
name
sign?
was Angel. This was the technician.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
And he said, I know I'm not supposed to say anything, but you're good.
Wow.
So he gave me that, and then he has his name Angel. And then at one point, I had a hummingbird come and visit me. And so I had these signs, and it was the first time that I actually started listening from the time I was a little kid, because I didn't override what I was getting in my body. It was like, okay, we can do this. And I really let my body drive where I went. So listening to my body.
Yeah. And is this something that you've always done? Did you just block it out?
Yes.
Throughout your life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I did as a kid. And then as I sat in a office with fluorescent lights and I just got disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Tim, as you and I have talked, you know, we're about the same age group. And we grew up in the same time as all three of us here. And I grew up in a time where it was like you power through.
Yeah.
Right?
Suck it up.
Well, you will
Suck it up.
through.
Yeah. Yeah.
As Jen said, you know, no pain, no gain type.
Yep.
You know, you're going to work. It requires 20 hours a day to get the job done. You're going to do it, right? It wasn't like there's no balance. And all my jobs, I had several different career paths. But all of them was always like, you're going to do what's necessary to get it done. And you're never really listening in on what's happening.
Yeah.
Right? You're just willing it because that's the thing to do. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And so we learned a lesson as well from our kids, the next generation, our millennial kids and our Gen Z kids.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, one of them works for us and he's very clear. Like, that's not me. I am not going to
I'm not
work
doing that.
20 hours a week and will my son power through everything because you know what? These other things over here that are part of my personal life are important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it might be relationships, sports, activities that he wants to do. And we're like, no. You're going to, you know, because our default is like, you got to get the job done.
Yeah.
So he's actually showing us a different way of operating. And then when you cycle that back and you go, well, that's how Jen got sick. That makes total sense that he would say something like that. I don't want to end up like Jen or like you guys, right? Who work crazy for the man.
Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, this is the generational thing. Like I lost my father when he was 45 years old. I was 10 at the time. And I remember it. He had open heart surgery probably in his early 40s. I don't remember it. You know, when you look at the cycle of that generation, the previous generation, it's, you know, something I looked at, and because I was always a kid in nature as well. I love to get outside and play sports and do what I love to do. And it's, you know, I looked at the challenges that he faced in his life, and I'm like, I don't want to live that life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because it was a very, very destructive life. Like they didn't listen to their body. They was just push. They thought the body and the mind could go forever. And, you know, the body finally pushes back and said, I can't take the stress anymore. And it sounded like what happened is that your body was just making these signs and they were showing up in symptoms.
Yes.
Right. And
Absolutely.
were you tapping into these symptoms? Like were these symptoms, like, because you said you had all these different things in 2008, right?
Yep.
At what point was it the fourth one, the fifth one, the sixth one? You finally said, "Hey, listen, I gotta address these."
Yeah, actually, it took the doctor to say, if you don't change something in your life, you will not be on this planet in 5 years. And that's what he said to me. And that's when I went home and I went, oh my gosh, this is serious.
Yeah.
But what had happened in that moment is I was building out a whole new function at a bank. And my lymph nodes were the size of golf balls. So I had them all down here. And the work required me to work. So that's when I was working the 20 hours. And I just overrode, like my body was screaming at me. And I was like, later, I'll get to you later.
Right.
And then later didn't come because I got hit with all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and the good news about this white coat doctor, traditional Western doctor, is that he had compassion.
Yes.
He had like, you're not just another number in my office. You're Jennifer, and I care about you.
Yeah.
And I see what's happening here. I am telling you, you need to change, right? And as opposed to saying, yeah, take these pills and you'll be fine, right? So that was, you know, Dr. Albright was,
he was
right
great.
on the money about that. And he finally convinced her, like, you need a sabbatical from work for 90 days.
Yeah.
Like, you need to get away from work and just be in bed,
Yeah.
you know, and be in nature. And you finally listened to that message, and thank goodness it worked out with the office at that time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well-
and she was able to get her health back to a decent
Yeah.
level.
Well, as you know, there's many great doctors in the system, and I think the challenge with them is that they're put into a medical school where it's a one size fits all. Like, this is the hammer, and you're going to go find every nail, and you're going to hit it with a hammer.
That's right.
Yes.
And there are some that wanted to become healers, that wanted to practice real medicine, who got caught in the system because that was the path they needed to take, and they got in there. They're rebels unto themselves. Like Dr. Albright was one who basically looked at this from what I can prescribe all these things to you,
Right.
But that's not going to give you what you need.
Yes.
This is what you need.
That's right.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm
right.
so happy to hear this, that you found a great doctor to be able to lead you down that path, because it took you to, the next part of your journey, of course. But let's first talk about and I believe you've gone through some surgery, but you didn't take the path of radiation and chemotherapy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So that's where, walk me through this, because this is a very important part of this turn in where this direction started to go.
Yeah, I mean, there is a whole energy when you get a diagnosis that right away you are scheduled for surgery. And, so I think my diagnosis came on a Thursday and I was scheduled for surgery like on Monday. I mean, it was that fast. Really did not have time to even process it. And of course, most people are afraid. So you're in fear. So you're kind of just going along. Mm-hmm. And, I wouldn't do surgery today, but then, 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago, I did. Yeah. And I had the surgery and I started recovering. They wanted to take all my lymph nodes out. I said, absolutely not. So I said, no way. I challenged every step of the way. Again, I had a really great surgeon. And, she said, that's not normal. Normally we do an axillary, dissection, take out 32 lymph nodes. And I said, but this is my garbage system. How am I going to get the toxins out of my body? And she said, all right, I'll tell you what. I will go in and I will feel every lymph node. If it's bigger than a grain of rice, I'm going to take it. I said, great. She said, it's going to double the amount of time you're under. Okay. So she did that, and they ended up taking 3 lymph nodes.
Wow, out of 32?
Out of 32.
Which would have been the standard protocol.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then she asked me to go see a radiologist. I said, I'm not doing radiation and chemo. And she said, will you please just go see him? And we did, and thank goodness, because Lou was still kind of like, maybe you should do what the doctors are telling you. And after meeting the radiologist, Lou said, absolutely, you're not doing that. And he was on my side at that point. And what was really fascinating is this wonderful surgeon then came back to me and said, you doing radiation would have been an assault on your body. And I looked at her and I said, then why did you ask me to go? She said, Jennifer, I will lose my job if I don't offer this to you. And I said, so your job is more important than my life. And she actually started crying.
Yeah.
She actually said, thank you for sharing that. So I really feel like, when
I said, you've taught her something.
Yeah, she said, you've taught me a lot. And I think through the process, I became more empowered because I was creating my own path forward. And that empowerment allowed me to trust my body. It allowed me to trust my judgment, my decisions. And at one point, Lou and I had this really difficult conversation. And he said, what if you die? Like, what, you're not doing what the doctors are saying. What if you die? And I said, then I'm dying on my terms. And this is my choice. And he's like, all right, I'm all in.
Wow.
Yeah. My experience through all this was, first of all, in the very early diagnosis, and I'll always remember this, on my birthday, we're in the office and the nurse practitioner comes in and says, you have cancer. Or it was ductal carcinoma institute, right? You have these calcified cells in your breast tissue, and carcinoma, we understand what that means. And all of a sudden, this wave of information comes over you. Like, oh my God, right? Like all of a sudden, your whole life flashes in front of you, basically. Like, the kids, the work, the this, the health, my wife. and then she's, if you'll excuse me, I'll step out of the room so you can gather yourselves, and then I'll come back. And at that moment, for me, it was, we just got plugged into the system. She knew exactly what to say after she gave us that diagnosis, and we're reacting. Right? And we're emotional. And she walks out of the room, and I just felt like I'm not playing. Like the book says, walk out of the room, give him time. You know what I mean?
Like, right, the script.
Yeah, there's a script. There's a standard operating procedure.
Ready, take one.
Yeah, take one. You're now in the formula.
Yeah.
In the standard of care. And from that point, it just felt that way. And as Jen highlighted a minute ago, when we saw that guy, and I went in there and I said, we got to listen, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And he was like forceful, improper, forceful, like, you're going to be dead in 5 years if you don't get radiation. And I went, how do you know? Like, you don't know this woman. We were having this. And as Jen said, we walked out of that and I went, you're not getting radiation. We are done with the
Yeah,
system.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Give
I mean, that's it.
give him praise
Yeah.
for being that individual.
Yes.
If he was more caring,
Yeah.
you might have gone through it.
I might have,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I was pretty clear in me. I
Yeah.
wasn't going to
Yeah.
do it.
But he might have been like,
Yeah. I might have just,
he's a nice guy. I think he's telling the truth. Like, but no.
Yeah. And you do
Yeah.
get to that conversation of what if. You got to have that
Yeah.
conversation. She had stage 4,
Yeah.
and so we're like, Jen, what happens if you pass? And she's like, you know what? If I pass, I'll pass on my own terms. It's not up to you. It's not up to that doctor or this doctor. It's up to me, and it's my journey. And that was a very powerful moment between us as a couple, because I was like, okay, I get to take a deep breath and understand that it really is Jen's journey. And all these journeys, no matter what treatment or no matter what disease you get, it's a personal journey. It's not 100% everybody else matters. It's really about me.
Yeah, and as I became more empowered, I trusted myself. So I had an innate knowing that I wasn't going to die. I knew it, and I trusted that. And that's where I started like getting my life force back.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, this is up to me. I
Yeah.
can make these decisions. But I wanted to, at least educate myself. So one of the best things that a naturopathic doctor did was he told me to read a book called Tripping Over the Truth. Best book I ever read. It goes through how the big 3 and standard of care became into existence. And that's where I learned chemotherapy's mustard gas. I had no idea, right? So that book alone really gave me information to say, okay, I'm going to make an informed decision now versus just blindly following somebody or a path that's been laid out for me.
Yeah. Where did you find, because there are so many individuals that go through this journey, you have no idea that there's a naturopathic path
Right.
that they can take. Like, what was it? And I know you talked about this, like somebody basically saying, like, you need to take this path. You went to Hawaii,
Yep.
right? You did some things there. Like, talk about that journey, because you decided not to do the chemo, the radiation, but you looked at alternative therapies.
Yes.
And is that where you got introduced to these plant-derived stem cells?
Yeah, it was definitely through the journey. And the big thing, I think this was I call it the great unraveling, the great awakening, right? Where somewhere in me flipped out of this, hey, I'm going to follow what somebody else tells me, to, oh my gosh, I've got to make these decisions on my own. And even how I found the naturopath, I was up at the top of Machu Picchu, looking at all these beautiful light orbs. Wow. And all of a sudden I heard this voice that said, get to a doctor now. And I'd had a lymph node. It was, it was good size. It was about 1.5 inch lymph node. And so I came off that mountain, and I had watched a documentary called The Truth About Cancer, probably a year before.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this one doctor, and I said, I'm going to meet him one day. And I'm thinking to myself at a conference somewhere, come off the mountain at Machu Picchu. I call his office, and I said, I need to come see Dr. Pai. And his admin said, well, he's booked out for a year. I said, I think I have serious metastasized cancer. Can I get in? She said, can you fly to New Mexico next week? So I literally, we were lucky because we were bankers. I could fly and I could afford it to go wherever I needed to go. So I had Dr. Keneally in California, Dr. Pai in New Mexico, and Dr. Stoff in New York. So I was
Wow, what a great team.
a great team that were all these natural-minded doctors, but also integrative and informed. So it was like, okay, they were going to walk beside me no matter what choice I made, but they had the tools to enable me to make the decision.
Wow.
Well, and then to Tim's point, you stumbled across
The plant stem
in
cells.
Hawaii,
Yes.
and the plant stem cells
Yep.
became part of your overall therapy. Right?
Yeah, they were huge because my cancer markers started going up in 2018. So here I am, 3 years, no evidence of disease. Cancer markers are going up. And to me, at that point, I was able to look at it that something was still out of balance in my life. I'm like, okay, this is just information. So I didn't go into fear. And I ended up talking to a friend, and her husband happened to be a doctor in Dallas. And she said, why don't you come do a session with Dr. Michael? I said, okay, great. So fly to Dallas, do a session with him. He goes, yep, it's not looking good. Looks like your cancer markers. There was a part of me that said, wait a minute, I'm not in corporate anymore. I've been out of it for a good year. Why, what does this mean? And he came out, after our session with this tincture. And he said, hey, very casually, this is something that saved a lot of my patients' lives. And I said, great, what is it? And as soon as he said it was embryonic plant stem cells, I literally felt like I was struck by lightning. And I looked at him and I said, what is it? How do you know? What does it work? How does it work? How do you know? So I'm like pummeling him with questions. And he's like, whoa, calm down. He said, there's a training coming up in 3 months. Why don't you go? It's for doctors. You're not a doctor, but you are a holistic health practitioner. See if you can get in. So I got in. And on the last day of the training, the guy who had owned the company before said, I'm going to be selling the company. And here comes that same energy. And this is something I teach people, is that we're all divinely guided. We just don't pay attention to it, right? Yeah. So I had so many of these, I call them miraculous things. And so I came back from that training. I meditated for a month. Like, what does this mean? And I kept seeing all this light coming into the body. So I'm intuitive. And then I called up the prior owner and I said, put me on a protocol. Let's see. Trust but verify. Let's see what happens. And 2 months later, my cancer markers were back in the normal range. And I said, okay, I'm the one who's supposed to buy your company. I know it.
And apparently you called Lou?
Yeah. From the Honolulu airport.
And he said,
you are not going to any more training classes ever again.
Expensive
it's not like she bought a program. She bought a company.
I know. He said, guess what, honey? I think we're going to buy a plant stem cell company. And he's
I thought
like,
the flight was expensive.
What?
Hey, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this when you said that you said that plants or plant stem cells found you?
Yes.
Was this that moment that they found you?
Moment. Yeah.
And this is what's crazy about this. I understand that, like, there was somebody who found these things like in 1200 AD, and then 800 years later, somebody else resurrected it. But there was a woman, I guess, who found eight plants. Is that correct?
Yes.
That were
Hildegarda Bingham, who's considered the first true naturopathic doctor. She's the one. She wrote this book called Physica, and she talked about eating, clean food, drink clean water, get sunshine, right?
What?
All the things we
Hold
know.
on.
Back in the 12th
Whoa.
century.
That's crazy. That's
and by
wacko.
the way, there are 8 plants that you should eat the buds of because they have these special regenerative qualities in the body. So she's the first one who we can find documentation.
Physica is the book name.
Yeah, and she's the first one that made the link between, the hawthorn plant, for example, good for the heart, right?
Okay.
So, and she had 8 plants that she knew that when she gave the buds to a patient, they would get better.
Yeah.
It could be kidneys, it could be digestion, whatever. And those 8 plants were the original, plant stem cell therapy.
Yeah, and then in the 1959, 1960, in Belgium, a doctor started studying them and said, oh my gosh, these are cleaning up the liver. And then his student that took it to the next level said, well, they're not just cleaning up the liver, they're cleaning up the metabolic function in the body. And then the following big person said, wait a minute, no, these are actually working on cleaning up the cells and the organs, which is our health, right?
Yeah.
And so, a big part of my mission has been to teach people about these because we're living in the most toxic time, in our generations for sure.
Yeah.
And, this concept of total load, our bodies were not meant to hold all the toxicity. It's in our air, our food, our water. And, when we go to Italy, we have people that are celiac that can eat the pizza and the pasta. So it's not the.
I know. I'm one of them. I don't have celiac, but I have gluten issues. And I'm like, I lose my proverbial, when I'm over there because, I can eat all this stuff.
Can eat it. And you don't get inflamed.
No, not at all.
Right.
And it's because it's not full of glyphosate and all of the crap that we're spraying. And it's not a hybridized seed.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny. I ran into one of my favorite news people is John Stossel. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of retired now, but he does a lot of YouTube sort of podcasts, right? And he does these news things, and he was always kind of sensational. But I always liked him. My father and I used to watch him on NBC or ABC. Anyway, I ran into him. And I said, John,
He was at the
big
volleyball
fan. He
event.
was at the volleyball
okay.
vacation.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
John, big fan, my father and I. So I call my dad up on FaceTime.
It's
Like,
John
"Hey, we're
Stossel."
Anyway, so we did that. And John was like, what do you do? So we had a conversation over a beer. And a great guy, very, very personable. And I think I said that or Jen said, we live in a very toxic time. And his automatic reaction was, well, it can't be as bad as the 1970s and 60s where the Cuyahoga River caught on fire, and we used to have DDT problems and all those things. And I said, yeah, we had like macro pollution back in those days.
Yeah.
Now we have nano pollution.
Yeah.
And it's the pollution we don't see. It's the stuff you eat, it's the stuff you breathe, it's the stuff you drink. And glyphosate in this country is all over.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. The statistics are like 99% of us have glyphosate in our system.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have nanoplastics in our blood, right? It's just there. And it might not have been like that back in the 60s, but people perceived that it was dirtier back then. But we're much more dirtier because we don't see it. The pollution in our bodies.
Right.
And our bodies are getting sick. And that, you look at cancer,
Yeah.
right? We're if we hold on to the toxic load, we're going to get sick.
Yeah. What I love about that era was leaded gasoline.
Yes.
Right.
Like, wait, hold on. There's lead now floating around in the atmosphere, and our cigarettes have less tar.
Yeah.
Like, can we stop with tar?
Yeah.
Hold on. Less tar. That means the other ones are loaded with tar. Like,
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, we got a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's not nanos. You're absolutely right. So why don't we dive into the soil? I think it's important because soil is, I forget somebody said, and maybe it was on a podcast I was listening to, that it's not a resource, it's a source.
Right.
So talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, the soil is the terrain of the earth, just like our bodies, right? This is our terrain here.
Mm-hmm.
And soil has been depleted since really the 70s. NPK fertilizer started stripping copper from the soil, which means the plants that grow don't have copper, which means that the animals that eat the plants and then the people that eat the plants and the animals are not getting copper. And copper runs like 5,600 mechanisms in the body. And copper regulates iron in the body. So, just doing one thing and depleting the soil has a long-term effect on our bodies because we're eating that food. And it's deplete of energy. It's deplete of life force, the whole tilling thing. There's a great, great documentary called The Littlest, Biggest Farm, one of my favorites, that goes through this whole cycle of what's happened to our soil. And, as kids, I know, we all went outside and there weren't cell phones, right? We stayed out until it was dark and hoped we didn't get in trouble running in. And we were filthy. We were in the dirt.
Yeah.
Right? Dirt has all the microorganisms, the bacteria. So we became immune. We were pretty dang healthy kids.
Get sick as
Right? We
kids.
got chicken pox, measles. We were all fine.
Yeah.
Right? Now there are all these vaccines to try to prevent what is just a natural immunity builder. So, I mean, I still to this day, I love to garden. I love to get my fingers in the dirt because I do think that supports my immune system.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, I grew up with, there was a little area outside my house where there was a fire hydrant, and it was like an area cleared, and it was like my mud pit. Like I'd take the hose out there and fill it up, and I just started putting my hands in the mud. And then, of course, years later, when I got introduced to this community, I found out that eating dirt
Yes.
is a thing.
It is.
I'm like, okay, between drinking urine and eating dirt, I'm like, who are these people? I had to realize, hold on. I can go this far, but I'm not going that far.
Yeah.
Maybe the dirt. I may still be on board with the dirt. But talk about the plants that you found, and you go to Italy a lot, and you found this one area that is sounds like a slice of heaven.
It is. Yes. So it's in the Italian Alps. It's considered one of the most pristine areas on our earth, right? Not just in our vicinity. And there's no pollution. Nothing is sprayed, and no heavy metals. So one of the beautiful things about these plants is they're getting the new bud on the tree in the springtime. So these plants grow in their natural habitat. Again, not cultivated, not sprayed, not interfered with in any way. And somebody goes and handpicks those little buds. We don't ever pick more than 20% because we don't want to harm the plant, right? So we're doing it with nature. And I think that's a big piece. The medical system is blocking a pathway in the body. The plant stem cells work with the body in the flow of the body. And that's what we want to do. That's how we heal, right? Is we're working with nature. We're not fighting against it. If you try to fight nature, you're never going to win.
Well, and then you get the physical properties of the bud, right? A lot of people are like, okay, What is that? Well, it's juvenile phytohormones, gibberellins, all these different things. There's flavonoids, there's exosomes, there's all these wonderful properties, peptides in that bud that are in high concentration. And the DNA and the RNA is multiplying at a super big rate, right? So when you're taking that in, it works the same way in our bodies. It works with our cellular system. But the other aspects of it is it's Mother Nature, right? It's the light, it's the sunlight, it's the energy of that plant, the energy of that bud. It's all captured there. So, Jenn talks about her journey was mind, spirit, and body, right? She had to get her mind right, her divine, right, connection, and then she was doing the physical aspects of, and a lot of people say cancer is all physical. No, there's these other aspects, which is another aspect of the plant buds, is that they have all those aspects in it. There's a Mother Nature, quote unquote, right? Mother Nature in every bud. And I think that makes a difference that you can't really quantify.
Yeah. No, but if you look at broccoli, we know broccoli is good for us, but broccoli sprouts have sulforaphane, right? Abundance of sulforaphane. And so you'd be better off eating broccoli sprouts than broccoli.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. So in that bud phase, you're getting things that don't exist in the adult plant.
Yeah. Wasn't that, I think I heard somewhere that what it was many years ago, like if you had an ear of corn, like now it's like you need to have 8 ears of corn to equal
Correct.
Yes.
what that 1 ear of corn was.
12 apples.
Because the
to one.
nutritional value has been so degraded
Right.
because of the soil,
Yes.
right? So you have to eat 10 apples to get the nutritional value of an apple from 100 years ago.
So with the broccoli,
Yes.
right, the broccoli sprouts are actually the equivalent of probably what the broccoli was
Yes.
back in the day. So it sounds like we ought to start looking at eating, because they always say, like, eat, I know I've heard this before, and JJ and I love to practice this, is get 30 different colors, vegetables, and spices count, by the way,
Yes.
in your diet, like once a week.
Yeah, because you're
And-
building up your microbiome
Right.
and you're building up the diversity in your body.
Yeah. So it's, looking at that, it's like, if you're going to do these 30, like, get the most potent ones you can.
Yeah.
So besides the broccoli, what are some other things that individuals could do? Of course, they can also look at the tinctures, the things that you're doing, but just, the American diet we know is horrific.
Yes.
So if somebody's saying, I want to take a path and I want to take a more natural path to my diet, what would you recommend from a plant standpoint to get the highest quality nutrients?
Yeah. Eat local,
Okay.
right? North America is one of the only areas in the world where we eat whatever we want, whenever we want. So if it doesn't grow local, we really shouldn't be eating it. And I just read something about bananas, right? Bananas are a tropical fruit.
Right.
So we should never be eating bananas, really, because...
Wait, what?
Yeah, I
can't
know.
eat a Hold on, could somebody work on a microphone? I got
Mute that in
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean,
Take two.
this was a food specialist who was saying, because your body is not used to, it's not in your genetic makeup. So kind of interesting. So eat local, eat diverse foods. And there's a group called the Environmental Working Group. It's EWG.org. And every year they come out with the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So what I tell my, young adult children who say, oh my gosh, organic's so expensive. You pay now or you pay later, number one. Number two, at least follow the Clean 15. And on the Dirty Dozen, go buy organic for those, right? Because meats have hormones, dairy has hormones, right? So, and we've got to really educate ourselves. I say read labels.
Yeah.
Read labels of your food. If you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. It's not real food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, those are kind of the basics that I
Very cool.
say for food.
So let's talk about detoxification, because we're big proponents of the sauna.
Yep.
But here's the thing: I'm not on any of these plant-derived stem cells, and I understand there's some really great things in there that can help detoxify the body.
Yep.
And it's not just, sauna's great, of course, right? We want to always lean into that,
sure.
because sweating is really good for you, and getting those infrared light into you is great. But talk about some of the detoxification pathways that can be taken with plant-derived stem cells.
Yeah, so these are actually known as drainage remedies. And the way I describe it is drainage is a step beyond detoxification. So many people will do a parasite cleanse, for example. if their emunctory organs, which are your liver, your kidneys, your skin, and your colon, if those areas are not open and you start to dump a toxic load, it's not uncommon to have a Herxheimer reaction. You get brain fog, rashes, you feel like crap, you feel like you have the flu, really. Drainage remedies, actually, these plants have the intelligence to drive the toxic load to one of the organs to get it out of the body. So if the liver is congested, it'll take it to the kidneys. If the kidneys have an issue, it'll take it to the colon. So they have the intelligence to get the toxic burden out so you don't have that Herxheimer reaction. That's the difference with drainage. So drainage is opening up those organs to get the toxic burden out of the body. And I think it's really important. 20 years ago, I would say you could do a detox a couple of times a year, right? Now, because of this total load in our bodies, I'm all about staying ahead of it. I want to get it out faster than it's coming into my body. And believe it or not, something like tire dust, which I had never even heard of before.
Tires? Rubber tires?
Yep, they're emitting a dust that we are breathing in.
Oh, wow.
And it's one of the biggest things that are affecting our lungs, and we don't even know it. It goes back to what we don't see, these toxins we don't see.
Think about how many tires are.
Yes, like the no-see-ums.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's that micro that we breathe in, and it turns into nano, and it gets in our cells, and it pollutes us. But I think about nature. Jen gave a great explanation there, but you think about the animal world, the animal kingdom. Like, animals know what plants to eat when they have a certain condition.
Right.
My tummy hurts, I know I'm going to go eat that plant. I don't feel well, I don't have energy, whatever it may be, it knows to go to that plant, right? So we see it in the animal world, which, for millions of years it's been happening, and we think we can synthesize something out of a lab and make it better, right? That's our humans. But at the end of the day, nature provides, right? So it just, the plants are there, the materials are there to stay healthy. Unfortunately, we bombard ourselves with so many toxins that to Jen's point, you got to stay ahead of it. So constantly draining your metabolic system of toxins through your emunctory organs is a good practice, not just once or twice a year, on a detox.
And plants have an affinity for systems in the body and organs. That's how you know. So you can clean up every system and organ in the body, which to me, that's our foundational health, right? If you've got a cardiovascular issue, there are plants like hawthorn that are phenomenal for that. Lilac opens up the arteries, right? And so many weird, quote unquote, things have happened in our system. I learned through a training program that cholesterol up until 1995 was allowed to be up to 399 before a conventional doctor batted an eye. And in the first time in our medical history, they dropped the marker from 399 down to 200 when statins came out. And
wonder why.
Yeah, and the bad part
I
is...
know that right?
But
since you were in that field.
Right,
Yeah,
yes.
and the bad part is that low cholesterol actually is more detrimental in many ways than high cholesterol. I had a cholesterol of 140. I was a runner, I was an athlete, played volleyball, played soccer up until my 40s, very actively. And I always had been like, oh my gosh, you're the poster child. Always been told by the doctors, you're the poster child. Cholesterol is great. Well, anything under 160, your odds of cancer are 10% higher.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I was right in there, right? Because you need...
You weren't the picture.
Too low.
No. And
It
you
wasn't.
No.
it's actually 10 times higher, not 10% higher.
Wow.
Your chances of getting cancer are 10 times higher. And you need cholesterol for your brain, for your joints, for your hormones. You need it for everything. So we've been
200 was an
sold a lot
artificially
of stuff
Yes.
that's not true.
Right.
And to me, it's about coming back into nature, trusting and listening to our bodies, and
Okay,
taking care.
so let's talk about that, because this is where the old rubber meets the road, where they basically say, the traditional system will say, this is not science-backed, right? What we do is science-backed, and we know cholesterol needs to be, that HDL needs to be as low as it can, right? Or I'm sorry, the HDL is
LDL.
good, the LDL needs to be low as it can. So of course, you're out there saying something completely different.
Yes.
What have they been saying?
Who, the doctors?
Yes, the industry, the doctors.
Yeah, they don't like it much because it goes against the narrative. There's a narrative out there that, you need somebody to tell you what to do, what to take. There's a narrative out there of take a pill and I feel better in 20 minutes. That's another big thing. We are so conditioned to that concept.
Yeah.
And everything I say is the opposite. And that's kind of the running joke is if that's what you read, do the opposite. You're probably going to be better off, right?
Yeah.
Of course, with being smart about it.
So Tim, through regular lab testing, blood testing, et cetera, you always get a cholesterol, right? HDL, LDL, a ratio, et cetera, and a number. And the last time I was with actually Dr. Albright, I was a little high. Okay, 212 or something like that. But he was like, I'm not worried about it at all. But what I want to know is the way that your fat is in your blood.
Right.
Is it big
Size.
globules or is it small? And the little ones, stick together and they start clogging.
Right.
And he said, that's really what's important, not these numbers over here.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he did that and he said, you're fine. Right. So it's like, don't worry about it. Now, could I have a reading of 320 or 312 and still be fine? Probably.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
But if you just go to the quick answer,
Right.
it's add a statin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're on it for life.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you have all the side effects.
Right.
You're now saying they're tied to dementia and Alzheimer's and brain disorders.
Those are three great things that are driving industries right now, by the way.
Yes. Right.
So, yeah, it doesn't, a healthy patient is not a financial success for their model.
That's right.
So what you're doing is you're showing the system that you can do this in a way that doesn't require their statins.
Right.
Right. And their remedies, those pills that they say are for every ill. And it's not the case. All those pills are doing is destroying, the individual.
Right.
And there's a reason why.
The terrain.
And
right?
the terrain, right. And there's a reason why, which you don't find in the supplemental world, but there's a reason why electronic health record systems in these big systems have drug-to-drug checking, right?
Yes.
To make sure that this drug is not going to interact with this drug and cause this or cause death.
Right.
Right? We don't see that in the supplemental world, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the biggest things about the plant stem cells is there are only 2 out of the 100 individual plants that, we work with that have any type of contraindication, maidenhair tree and white willow, because they are natural blood thinners, nature's blood thinners. So if somebody's taking a blood thinner, I would choose a different plant. And the good news is, plants have the ability to work on multiple systems at the same time.
Yeah.
And you have multiple plants that can do the same thing in a different way, different mechanism of action.
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful thing.
Yeah, and we go back to the cholesterol. You have a combination of adult and young embryonic shoots of product supplements that you put together that controls cholesterol just as well as any statin. And so people just don't, it's a supplement. I got blinders. My doctor didn't prescribe me a statin. That can't be strong enough to take care of me.
Right.
And we see it all the time. People take the supplements and it works just
But you're working with the body,
Yeah.
not shutting something down.
Right. Well, when we look back on time, the Flexner report came out, and you have Rothschild, of course, who decided to take all these natural remedies and synthesize them and make them, of course, more bioavailable, I guess you could say, whatever that means, but to make them more stable and add a little petroleum, everything's great. And then here you go, you got this great little pill. So, but you look back on time and you say, before this, what were individuals taking? What type of natural remedies were working?
Yes.
And why were they canceled for so many years?
Right.
And now what we're seeing is, let's call it what it is. I think we're seeing this spiritual revolution. Like there's things going on right now in the world. There aren't just coincidences anymore that are happening. Like these things are real actions that are taking foot. And I think a big event, of course, happened back in 2020 that I think it shifted the overall consciousness of the world and about looking at healing in a different way.
Yeah, it woke a lot of people up.
Yes.
I think it did the opposite of maybe what the intention was.
Absolutely, it did. Yeah.
So it's been beautiful actually because I see more people questioning the medical models, the financial models, right? So many of the existing models that we have that aren't working for them.
Yeah.
And they're asking questions, they're pushing back, they're educating themselves. And that's the best, right? Because an empowered person, coming back to that word, we're the ones that are standing up. We're the ones who are saying, we're going to create something different because that's not working.
Yeah. Yeah. And it hasn't been working.
And it hasn't worked.
Yeah. And I think that's where people are waking up to say, I've been seeing this system for 30 plus years and I feel worse than ever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
One of my favorite stories, I had a friend who worked at Merck.
Mm-hmm.
And they had their annual meeting and they decided to give out the original Merck manual. So there are probably 250 executives in this room. And at some point, one of the executives realized, oh, shoot, that Merck manual is all plants.
Uh-oh.
It's not drugs. It's all plants. They actually went and confiscated and would not let anybody walk out the door with the original Merck manual. So isn't that fascinating that at first it got by them and they printed all these and then they had to pull it back because it's like, oh, wait a minute, that's free. It's nature. It's not a drug. We can't give that to people and let them figure out that lavender helps calm their nervous system. So pretty hilarious story. Oops.
That is a good one.
Yeah, and I do think there was a little bit of a backfire in 2020, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of us, Tim, you and me and Jen,
Yeah.
you know, over the last decade, let's call it, but 2020 was a big impact that caused us to leave corporate life.
Sure.
And leave industry to do our own thing.
Yeah.
Listening to our bodies, doing things with nature, right? And really questioning, like, really, like the whole planet had to take a shot? Like the whole planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So people are like, maybe I should ask some questions.
Well, there's fear.
Yeah.
Right. That was a fear campaign. And I think they didn't realize, and I think this is where what you're doing, what others are doing, what our community, Health Business Growth Collective is doing is helping these practitioners, these healers rise.
Yes.
Because if they can't be found, then people are just going to listen to the same old thing they're listening to. They're going to watch the TV and they're going to watch all these horrific like pharmaceutical drug commercials.
Right.
And they're going to think like, if I take that, I'll be happy. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, okay.
May cause paralysis and even death.
Did you remember those other 6 commercials? Yeah. And bloating and all those other things. Yeah. But did you see those other 6 things that you thought you should do and you still don't feel better? But I think what we're seeing now is that the natural healers, the integrative healers, the functional healers are all rising.
Yes.
And, and it's a beautiful thing. And it's a matter of not only talking the talk, but walking the walk. Like you're doing both. So let's talk about the business because this is so important because you had this revelation. I need to buy this. Lou was like, no more seminars for you. Okay. Your limit is one program. If it's under $5,000, that's it.
Can't buy another company.
Can't buy another company yet.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that you made this leap.
Yes.
And you bought this, what, in 2020?
2019.
2019. So timing is everything.
Yes.
Right. And it sounds like it's a beautiful thing. And it sounds like you're also expanding.
Yes.
In this world of your manufacturing and all that. And so talk about about the business journey that you're on. And by the way, I want to call it out that, you two work together. And this is so important for our audience because many in our audience, of course, are practitioners and they have a spouse or a partner or somebody that they have tried to work with, but it's like, there's no way I can work with that individual. And there might be personality types that do run into that, but JJ and I are very conscious of this. And, we have this great yin and yang where we go back and forth. And it seems like you both do as well. So I'd love to unlock your secrets about what makes you a successful couple in business.
It was a journey. Initially, it was a little rough, but it required a lot of communication, a lot of agreeing on who was going to have which role, how we were going to make decisions together, and what happened if we disagreed on a major decision, how we were going to resolve that. Those were kind of the key pieces, but communication. Yeah. And for us, the biggest, I think, challenge was unraveling the corporate construct in each of us, right? Here we went from corporate working all these hours, then we have our own business, and guess what? Same behavior showing up, work all day, have a nice dinner, go back into our office, working again. And so we've had to really be conscientious about our behaviors, how we're showing up. And, lately it's like, hey, we need to talk about something. Why don't we go on a walk and talk about it? We don't need to sit at a desk and in front of a computer. Let's go outside. It's nice. And so realizing, oh, wow, this is what we can do. So being able to make decisions in a very different way and to continue to release that, I think rigidity from the corporate construct, which is where you're on meetings all day, and really being able to stay in our lanes. Lou is a great general. He can get anything done. I'm a really great visionary. So not having me be in a general role and not having Lou be in the visionary role. So kind of knowing our strengths and our superpowers and being able to play off of those and,
Yeah,
stay
and
in
really
lanes.
honing in on it, because initially it was like, well, we're both corporate people, and the ego gets in the way, and you know what I mean? Like, well, I did all this too. I can do that. All those things kind of get in the way, and we're also a couple, and we're also parents, and all of those interactions are happening on top of trying to get along at work. So there was this whole unraveling of this corporate world, as Jen said, but then also fine-tuning our strengths and weaknesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jen, it took me too long to think that I wasn't the visionary that she was. She's a great, we often talk about you and JJ, actually, because it's a very similar situation. Like, I'm the CEO, you're the CEO.
Yep.
She's a visionary, JJ's a visionary.
Yep.
Those things. And just like, I let her embody that and be the architect and be the visionary and see the big picture. And I'm like getting it done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jen's like, are we sure we paid taxes? It's like, yeah, I'm on it. Don't worry. We paid our taxes, I'm on it. Okay. I'll focus on that. Yes. Go dream, honey.
Yeah.
But once we fine tune that, then the business itself operates itself so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And then our staff or the people that work with us, contractors, whatever it may be, they're clearer themselves on who they take direction from, who's going to get that work done, or, what have you. So initially, the first couple of years were really hard because we're stepping all over each other. And now we've got a much more defined environment. We've let go of that old corporate world. And now we're sort of, Jen is like the brand. She's focused on media, those types of things now.
Yeah.
And now I'm more on making sure that we get the work done.
Right.
But one of Lou's favorite words is boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So to maintain our personal integrity, when we go to dinner, it's like, can we not talk about the business?
Yeah.
Let's talk about us and what we want to build in our lives. And that's a constant practice,
Sure.
especially for this one
For me.
right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hard.
He's like, can I just say one thing? I just need to tell you one thing.
Okay, so we don't have the phone. We don't talk business at dinner. We don't talk too much sports. We're just like, okay, we're going to talk about us, honey. Yes, okay, let's do it.
See, we're the opposite. We talk about business at dinner so we can write the dinner off.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that
Yeah.
still happens.
But the bedroom, as soon as we walk through those doors, it's like, no,
Yeah.
not, because as soon as that, because that can be,
Well, it becomes your life.
it becomes your life. Like, you have to have an area where you can go and just
Yeah.
lean
be
into
able to
something
check out.
different. Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you run a business together all day, it consumes your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It just consumes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that we learned is that, I've been with her now a little over 10 years, and I've been working full time in the business for 3+ years now. And I kind of had half a foot in, was
Right.
working with the business, but we realized that it works so well is because we work together in life.
Right.
And you don't realize, like, when we were going through a remodel at the house here, I was managing that project.
Mm-hmm.
But, there were things that I would bring her in to do and all that. So while I was doing this, she was overdoing that. And you realize that you're doing things that you don't realize that
Right.
you're working together.
Yes. It's the partnership.
Yeah. And so we looked at that and said, hey, I'm already kind of in it and we're already working together. Let's just figure out. And we didn't have to sit down and say, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. It
Right.
just
It's
fell into place.
Kind of a
Right.
dance, right?
And, she's like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, I got that. That's what I do. And it's like, you do that far better than I do. So you just go do that.
That's right.
So it's
Right.
this thing, and I can't describe it. It's a energy. I think you both have it, and I know you definitely have it. And I've seen other couples that have it. But what advice would you give to a couple that says, we really want to work together, but I don't really like him when we work together?
Go ahead. You can start.
You want me to start? Well, I think the advice is just, first of all, you got to check that ego at the door. We all have egos. Our experiences, what we believe we're good at, we want to bring to the table. We were just like, I'm good at all this, so let me do it. And I realized, over time, I realized that if I check that out and I'm like, who's really better? Like, I think about an example early on, like, Jen's really good at communication. And I thought I was really good. I'm really good at writing an email. And Jen's like, I wouldn't have written that email like that. I would have done this. And I go, oh man, that would have been so much better. Right? So it's checking that part, like thinking that I know everything, and then checking that, and then really like coming to Jenn in this case and saying, what do you think about this email? Give me some feedback. Do you want to send it? So it's that communication, and then the result of what we do together is a much better representation of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And once all of that kind of happens, right, like you kind of start understanding strengths and weaknesses, and then it's like, oh, no, she's really the architect. I'm not a good visionary. I'm really good at getting stuff done.
Yep.
So Jenn hands over the stuff that needs to get done, and I give her the stuff that needs to be visioned,
Mm-hmm.
and together we're in our lanes and we get along much better. And and in between that, we dance. To your point,
Yeah.
we dance in our relationship and our family and everything else, and we establish boundaries and all of that. And as the more you practice, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I would add is that it's really stay in your lane, feel into the energy, trust the process, and talk a lot, especially in the beginning. Once you have that, then it's easy to kind of be in the flow of the business.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's end this on your documentary. I had a chance to watch it.
Oh, you did?
Yes, it was an amazing documentary,
Thank
and
you.
so talk about the accolades. Like you're receiving a number of awards for this documentary, and I just love the way it was put together. So talk about the inspiration. What was the reason for doing the documentary, and where are you now seeing it in the world today?
Yeah, more divine intervention for sure. One of the messages I received in one of my meditations is that the plants didn't want to be owned by anybody, which is interesting, right? Human beings like to own things.
Right.
I own this, I own that. And they said, you're our steward, and your job is to get the message out. And I took my job seriously. This was a message I received from the plants. And I said, so how can I do that? Oh, I can write a book. So I wrote a book called Ancient Plant Wisdom. And then our marketing director and I were talking, and I was going to be in another documentary, and that I ended up pulling out of it. And she came to me and she said, I think you deserve your own documentary. Your story's great. It can inspire a lot of people. And so I said, let's do it. And most of the documentary was filmed in Italy. So we went to Italy, flew her to Italy. And it was really about my personal healing journey and about the plants. And it was a great way to get the message out. So we've had over, I think, 100,000 views.
Wow.
We've won 18 film festival awards, which has been magical. And it's gotten the word out. And I just talked to a guy who's got a channel. He's got 33 million viewers on his channel. And he's a TV executive, and I have a contract sitting at home waiting for me to sign to get it on his channel, and his other channels called More You, so Women's Wellness and More You. And so I think that's the next step. You can't have it out like that when you're applying to film festival awards, so we're at the end of this journey. The last one we'll find out in April, this month, and then we'll be able to get it on a channel, and he also has a contact at Gaia, so there's a high likelihood we might get it on Gaia as well. And that's the goal, right? Because then more people see it.
Yeah.
And that was
And
the
we've got a
inspiration.
couple more episodes coming.
Yeah, we have 2 more episodes.
Oh, really?
coming out. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Episode 2, which is more around the science and
Okay.
the data.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the third episode is going to be more about testimonials, actual cases. People have seen the change happen. All that. So,
So important.
yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, it was all filmed on an iPhone.
It was all filmed on an iPhone. Can you believe that?
Or several iPhones.
Yeah. Or several
Two
iPhones.
But all
Yes.
iPhones, yes.
which the quality is amazing. It's just so beautiful. Like some of these shots,
Yeah.
like that's an iPhone.
Yes. Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be this crazy expensive
Yeah.
venture. And a documentary is a great way to get a message out.
Yeah. And we, of course, talk about that in the Health Business Growth Collective. We talk about ways of getting your message out. And everybody thinks you got to have all the cameras and the lights and all that. No, you need an iPhone and you need a beautiful environment.
Yes.
Like the lighting in Italy, some of those
Oh.
shots were, wow.
Yeah.
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 Right?
Like I want to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
eating all
pretty.
that pasta and all
Yeah.
the things I don't normally eat. But yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today on the show. It was so great to connect with both of you on this. And I'm so happy that there are natural ways now of, and I'm a big believer now in just following the science now, seeing what these things can do.
Yes.
I'm a big believer of natural, like these plant-derived stem cells, and really getting this out to the world, because this is the alternative. Should be the standard of care.
Yes.
This is what I would consider part of the new health paradigm, because people need to look at it and say, do I really need to take this pharmaceutical, or can I do this through a natural way? And it's not just, meditating. Like, this is far greater than this. Is about putting something into your body that's going to work and do the things that it needs to do.
Well, and one of the things that I love about plants, and especially these type of plants, is they do work on your emotional body, your mental body, right? Because they don't look at you as a piece or a part. They look at, the whole, and that's the best part. And they have this biologic and energetic impact. And, that's where our vitality comes from.
What a beautiful way to end the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tim,
Such
for
an honor
having
to be
us.
here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor. Thank you.